Yeah, always worried about the Finwa. So this is the other side of trying to help out.
Maybe you translate it into French.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, because not everybody speaks English. So what I'll do is I'll do a little bit in French, a little bit in English, so that everybody can catch. Donc, ce que je disais juste, c'est que l'approche de recyclage est complètement différente quand on doit regarder au niveau national, comme en France ou aux États-Unis, ou quand on doit se réduire à une île. Aux États-Unis, ça va être beaucoup plus efficace de prendre tous les déchets et de trier jusqu'au plus petit élément. Ça veut dire qu'on va remplir un container de plastique, de bouteilles en plastique, on va remplir un container de carton, etc., à l'élément le plus basique. Mais ici, on n'a pas ce volume. Donc, il faut qu'on adapte le recyclage à la petite quantité que produisent les îles. Parce que vraiment, à côté de ces grandes métropoles que tu as en France ou aux États-Unis, c'est des petites quantités. Et l'important, c'est d'adapter cela. Cela n'a jamais été fait. Et ce qui est intéressant, c'est qu'on a ici un groupe d'ingénieurs qui ont monté une solution. Cette solution, c'est facile de dire, voilà, on a ce produit, on va essayer de vous le refourguer. C'est une approche qui est plutôt commerciale et qui est plutôt pour rentrer de l'argent. Mais eux, c'est pas ça. Eux, ils disent, non, nous, on va venir, on va analyser et nous, on est en relation, on est partenaire avec les plus grands acteurs dans le monde du recyclage aux États-Unis. Et on va modulariser tous les éléments dont on a connaissance pour faire ce qu'on appelle le Green Island Project. Donc, réduire au niveau d'une petite île une solution qui est non seulement durable, adaptée, mais aussi ils ont derrière avec eux, parce qu'ils ne sont pas bêtes, ils savent qu'il n'y a pas beaucoup d'argent dans des petites communautés comme ici, c'est d'amener aussi une solution financière. On emmène notre propre financement, donc la commune n'a besoin de sortir aucun argent, et derrière, on a une team d'avocats qui vont aussi aider le côté juridique pour qu'on ait une solution clé en main complète. Et ça, bien sûr, adaptable. C'est-à-dire on va commencer par une étude et vous allez voir les bonnes nouvelles sur cette étude parce que qui dit étude, qui dit argent. Mais on ne va pas vous demander de l'argent. Et ça, je vais laisser ça à Rick et à Jason pour vous l'expliquer. Mais l'idée, c'est d'abord une étude. On veut voir comment on monte le projet. Quels sont les éléments? Comment on doit tirer? Est-ce que c'est mieux de prendre par exemple les détritus des petites îles dans les archipels et juste les sécher, les broyer et revenir avec Tahiti avec quelque chose qui ne sent pas mauvais? Ça va être des grosses boules d'une tonne d'une sorte de carburant sec qui est très transportable et qui est optimisé au transport pour pouvoir le traiter ici. Ou bien mettre une petite unité au niveau de chaque archipel. Donc ça, c'est des éléments que eux sont formés à gérer et à monter pour trouver la solution. Et donc, au bout de cette étude, on va amener après les éléments adéquats pour pouvoir trouver une solution de recyclage qui va non seulement être autofinancée, dans la mesure où on va avoir le prêt d'une banque américaine, mais derrière, on va générer de l'argent parce qu'on va créer de l'énergie, on va créer un produit et on va utiliser au début peut-être encore un peu les impôts qui sont collectés pour les détritus, mais tout doucement, il faut bien voir, on va pouvoir se permettre même de les éliminer. Et c'est ça le truc qui va mener cette solution à quelque chose qui en plus va donner une très belle image aux acteurs de ce projet. Parce qu'on va avoir de l'écotourisme et on va arrêter de polluer nos vallées et on va arrêter de générer et d'accumuler ce qu'on appelle de l'or. Comme dit le Tavana, c'est de l'or dur, mais c'est de l'or. Et c'est quelque chose que ça ne vaut pas le coup de revendre en Asie nos plastiques, de renvoyer nos pneus en Nouvelle-Zélande. On doit prendre tout ça et le gérer nous-mêmes et en tirer l'argent qu'on peut. So I was basically explaining you got a few words, but I was explaining how we can't use the same model for the big countries and adapt it to Tahiti because there's not enough volume. And so I explained what we talked about last night, basically how to downsize and how to use every resource instead of exporting the plastics to Asia and it's stuck here, or all the tires to New Zealand. This is money. This is money that we can generate, and we're going to use that money and use it to pay off the financing of this loan that will self-pay itself. And so I'm going to now start. It's Rick that's going to take the next step on the... yeah, I know Skip for 20 years, and now I'm starting to say Rick. So I'm going to let Skip take over and present to you the Green Island Project.
Okay.
And now, wait, how do we translate? Donc, on va parler en français. You know what? What I can do is I can translate as you speak. Vous enregistrez, ça va? Ça risque de être mauvais pour les enregistrements, ça va?
Non, ça va.
Okay.
Ça va?
So you go speak, I sit, and I will translate as you speak.
She's fluent in English.
You can do it in English with me.
Oh, you can stay in English? Everybody's okay with English? Perfect. So Skip, you take over. And I can sit? No.
I would like to say first, Oscar, thank you so much for inviting us back to present again. And as you recall from our initial meetings 20 years ago, the Green Island Project is about localizing your economy using best available technology, best available practices to address the waste concerns in Tahiti. In the approach of integrating these various technologies, you have to start somewhere. So we have a model that has all the various pieces, as we discussed previously. Digestion and pyrolysis being the two key ways to manage the waste. So once we get those two pieces anchored, the rest of this model of integration applies for Tahiti. So that's when the real fun begins. The easy part really is the waste. The difficult part is going to be bringing in all the various islands to participate and moving from these first two pieces into things like producing algae, biofuels via the algae. These two pieces that come together here provide essentially free food for algae. And for us to get to the point of producing biofuels for the airlines, the sustainable aviation fuel, that's probably something that we'll need to look at and build in the future. Because as Chris mentioned, the volumes here are somewhat smaller than other areas. So that is going to be the exciting part of this, is growing this to essentially incorporate all these opportunities in the Green Island Project. The low-hanging fruit is the renewable natural gas, quite easy to produce, can provide fuel for local needs. We can also get into CO2 capture if in fact this project ends up in the Punaru Valley. We could perhaps even take some CO2 from the existing facilities there to grow the algae. Some of the byproducts of pyrolysis. When pyrolysis is used for biogenic side of things, you get biochar. Biochar can be a soil amendment for agriculture, and when agriculture is used to produce biofuels, we simply continue to build and grow local capacity. So for instance, you guys know we're working in Fiji doing something similar. In Fiji, they have much more volume. So they're able to get to the low rung of sustainable aviation fuel technology. Here, we're still a bit short. If they're able to implement the project there, they will essentially keep in their economy annually 300 million Fiji dollars. So when we analyze Tahiti, we'll have a similar approach, and we'll be able to discover how much money can be kept in the Tahitian economy as opposed to it leaving by purchasing fuel that we can produce here. And
Skip, can I just cut you in a minute?
please.
Can you explain, because I'm sure that people don't understand why you brought in the algae. I didn't mention that, so it
Right,
could be good just to explain that it's the complementary part that will
Yes.
allow us to go to SAF.
Yes, and that's kind of what I was saying with Fiji. They have enough material to get to SAF.
And they don't need the algae.
Yeah, we're a little short. They don't need the algae, but here the purpose for the algae is to let us produce more fuel locally. The more fuel you produce locally, the less money you're exporting to import fuel. So it's just that trade-off: localizing the economy, capturing opportunity, and that's going to start with those two items there: digestion and pyrolysis, which will then allow us to start to look at algae as another activity here to eat. Does that answer your
Exactly.
question?
Well, yeah, because there's not enough volume, and there's a minimal volume needed to move to SAF. So that little missing part, we can compensate by creating our own algae. We grow our own algae, and that will create what's missing. And in the meantime that we grow to the volume that is needed to fully operate without the algae, we have the solution to complement with the algae. Do you understand what it is? Okay, I just want to make sure they understood that.
Yeah, so just to give the future goals of this first step established, the future goals create lots of jobs, localize the economy, and help environment, and that's really the ultimate goal of all these pieces being brought together. And I think you're up.
Yeah.
That was easy.
And we'll take,
You've heard this before.
we'll take breaks for any questions. This is really meant to go back and forth. And again, thank you very much for allowing us to be here. Very grateful. We've had a couple conversations between Skip and myself about how much we've gone back in time. And I'm going to explain to you Native Energy Services Company. But the Green Island project was something that Skip and I were at its very infancy with as a project. Even prior to Tahiti, we started with both in Southern California. We started with a very similar project because we were both associated with Catalina Island, and there were a lot of the same similar issues of how to be able to more sustainably create electricity. They were having a lot of issues, and those issues remain a lot of the same issues. The ability to resolve them has grown over time. So from that time that Skip was here, he was talking with you, we formed a separate company which brought in a combination of myself, Jason, and our founder, Elizabeth Perez, who was a enrolled member of the North Fork Rancheria tribe of Mono Indians. And the Mono Indians are located next to Yosemite, what's now called Yosemite. Obviously, they were there before it was called Yosemite. And as a mission of our organization, we decided that we would have a focus on a number of things, but a lot on Indian country, tribal land, and on indigenous areas. So when we reconnected again about Fiji, about other opportunities, about bringing back the Green Island project, it was not only the evolution of the technologies, but this opportunity that indigenous cultures now would have an opportunity to reach objectives of their own. And that may be localized material production, localized labors, sustainability, sovereignty. All these different things are happening in the United States with the tribes that we work with in the United States, but as a model that we can now bring to other indigenous communities. So that's why we formed the Native Energy Services Company, and my co-founder and colleague Jason will go into some more of the details. So as Skip was mentioning, starting back in 2008 and 2007 when we were here, there were a lot of opportunities already to take advantage of waste opportunities and create zero waste production. And those opportunities still exist, and they are part of what we do in our work in Indian country and with Native users, that things are phased. It's very difficult to go out there and accomplish everything that you want to accomplish all in one step. So if you start instead with saying, what's the nearest term types of things we can do with a more comprehensive master plan for what you'd like to be able to accomplish. And a lot of times that master plan is generated not only by localized needs, but things we're going to talk about, that the country as a whole, The world as a whole is now moving towards these things. So we're in a time and space right now where we need to move rather rapidly to try to find solutions. And sustainable aviation fuel has come as kind of being the thing that is driving projects that would have been done previously but now are being done because of the motivation of sustainable aviation. And so there's a list of things that we feel are beneficial of sustainable aviation fuel for Tahiti, but we're talking about last night. Beyond the sustainability, probably the most important thing is sustainable tourism. That this generation, the generations that are coming, are going to have expectations that when they get on that flight from LAX like we did and fly out 8 hours, and we think about the plane that we're coming out in, that sustainable aviation fuel makes us feel a little bit better about all that it takes to come out and fly out here. And so in general, kind of across the board, the aviation industry is adopting and adapting to sustainable aviation fuel and growing with it because they understand that their customers are looking forward to this. The other side of the equation is that at some point, the economics between sustainable aviation fuel and traditional fossil fuels are going to start to cross. And we're at a place right now to grow towards that. And it's, again, the goal in talking to you is not to say, how do we switch over to 100% localized sustainable aviation fuel tomorrow? That is not something that is accomplishable. But there is a plan that can eventually get you to something like that. So in that pathway, what we want to start laying out is gaining some experience, learning out what we can already start to do, if you can flip to the next page there, and take advantage of things. And so as I was mentioning, not just here locally, but again across the world, they're all looking at these same sorts of issues. Air France wants you to have sustainable aviation fuel. Air France already wants it for the rest of their flights that they're doing. They're focusing on it within France. So it's driven by a lot of things. And fortunately, collectively across the world, we're creating opportunities to be able to do it. So carbon credit opportunities is one example. So one of the things Jason and I will be talking with you about our model is we go out there and we look to find out where's, at a very macro level, where are opportunities being created. Because if we were trying to do all of this by ourselves with our own money and try to make this all work, it'd be very challenging. So the other part that's important here is that the overall landscape for what we're talking about here is not something that just Tahiti is trying to do, but collectively across the world is trying to happen. So the other thing that drove us over here recently is that it's not just that you would like to be able to take waste and be able to convert, which is a good thing to be able to do, but there are also problems with that landfill waste, as you guys are all very much aware of. And there's just, a list: limited space, methane emissions, groundwater contamination, air quality issues, waste management challenges. I don't have to explain this to you. You guys live with it every single day. So if there was a way, magic wand being out there, that you had a solution to solve this problem and create actually a whole nother solution, the two of them coming together is why now that the combination of sustainable aviation fuel and landfill, just as two connecting points, are something that should be motivation. Okay, so I think it really in this one is just a repeat here, is that we have a combination of localized feedstock and sources and things that we can grow, a broader universe of opportunities that collectively across the globe that people want to help you with. The French government, for example, would love to be your allies if you would like them to be, to make this all work. Again, it goes back to where some of these opportunities kind of come from. And then most importantly, the thing that we have to always reiterate is that this has a local economy benefit, workforce development, job creation, business creation, all those types of things is again another thing that we're doing where we're taking a problem and trying to create a solution. Down here. And I'm going to turn it over to Jason at this point. He's going to talk about the model that we use to try to work with you to get this done.
And I'm going to do it sitting down. I like to have a conversation and a presentation. So, NESCO, as you said, came out of our business partner, Liz Perez. She's a Native American. I'm partially Native, and my wife is partially Native American. I grew up from K through 5th grade on Guam. Half my family's from Taiwan. We're very island-centric. And we go to Hawaii every year. I actually bought property in Hawaii. NESCO, Native Energy Service, was created to develop opportunities for indigenous tribes in the United States, to give them independence from the U.S. government, not just independence, but their own way to create their own economy. You know, they were kind of left behind a bit. So they needed their own economy, they needed their energy independence from the utility grid, and they wanted to be able to make, you know, in that economy, make their own money, make their own, not just, right now, a lot of the tribes, their income is from casinos. But the tribes that have no casinos, they really don't have a sustainable income. And so what NESCO does, we go and develop opportunities for the tribes to give them that independence, that freedom, and that their own local economy, workforce development. And so we do that by a process called Master Energy Service Contract. And we take on because we understand that the tribes we work with, the nations we work with, they don't really have the dollars to spend to pay Beck Dole and the big boys millions of dollars to try to figure this out. So what we do is we come in with our own sweat, we call it sweat equity, if you will, and we develop and we look for the solution. And we do it on our own nickel, our own cost. So there's no cost to anybody, because that's how the tribes have to do the project. We had to evolve ourselves into making sure that we can get a project moving forward. And to do that, we had to put in a lot of time and effort ourselves. And, you know, that's a lot of, in the development world, I always give the same speech of it takes a long time to develop something. You guys have been listening to Skip for 20 years and 10 years, and you get what we call developer's fatigue. And that's one of the main things that stops projects like this. People get tired of how long it takes to get something going. So in our model, we only benefit when our customer benefits. There's no benefit for us. We're just going to work at this and try to get this passed through the development phase and make sure there's an opportunity here. And so when we look at the landscape, as Rick was talking about, we look at what are the issues and then what are the solutions for those issues. We are not a technology company. We don't make the product, so we're not trying to pitch a product. We try to find the right solution, and we go out and find the technology that meets that solution and make sure it's integrated and works. And so think of us more of a developer integrator, where engineering firm integrates different technologies to make sure that group of technologies that Skip was showing actually does what it's supposed to do. And then we call it being bankable. So once we have a feasibility study put together, we make sure that it's bankable. We go out to independent third-party engineering that the banks rely on to say that this project is bankable. And then we wrap the project with a big firm like Technique that'll bond the project. And that's how these big types of projects actually get moving forward, and not just an idea or a presentation. You know, it takes the government, it takes the locals, it takes the banks to want to do the project. And so you have to start here and make sure that you have everyone's buy-in, and then you have to do a feasibility study and take that to the people who have the money, because we don't want to give this project. And this is where our passion is with our Native Energy Service Company is. We're not trying to make this work for a big company where they're selling the fuel to the airlines and they're selling, you know, they're making the revenue. We want Tahiti to make the revenue. We want the tribes to make the revenue. You know, in other models you might see, people are trying to convince you to do a project because they want to make money. They want to sell that. They want to handle the waste. That's not our model. Our model is for, again, what we've done in the past with tribes is to make them the money, make them the equity. And we do it through what we call our capital stack. We look for grant opportunities, which is, you know, usually government incentives, and then philanthropy is another part of the capital stack, and then there's the bank. And again, the bank component is making sure that what our solution is bankable. I'm gonna stop there, pause there if there's any questions. Anything you guys want to ask?
How do you, if you're not in this for the business side of it, how do you remunerate yourselves?
How do we make our money?
Right.
We do it on a percentage of success. So
Okay.
whatever the percentage is of the project, we'll do a developer's fee percentage. So if there's no project, we don't do anything. That's the risk we take. We obviously the motivation, the way we came up with this model, because our motivation is now to be successful, because we're going to put all this time, effort, and engineering, and if it doesn't move forward, we just wasted so much time and dollars. So it aligns we call it putting skin in the game, right? It aligns us with success. If we're not successful, then we wasted a lot of time and money.
I was looking at your website, and you are specialized in energy services, but in solar technology and that sort of thing. There are no example of similar projects like this one on your site. Is this one of the first ones? You were talking about Fiji?
No, it's not. I think our site is geared towards what's happening right now in Native American territory, where the opportunities are what we call microgrids, where it's mostly solar energy storage. Everyone's getting away from fuels like natural gas. A lot of our tribal territories don't have a natural gas pipeline, so we can't do a cogeneration power plant. My background is I'm an engineer. I've done hundreds of megawatts of power plants, natural gas, fuel cells, and so my focus as a developer is never to pigeonhole myself to a technology. If I go through my resume of project, you'll see things from Yenbacher generators, Kawasaki turbines, fuel cell energy, fuel cells, UTC fuel cells, a blanket of different technologies. I never want to shoehorn myself into something. As a developer, as an engineer, I'm looking at all technologies that are available, that are proven, that are bankable. And those are the key metrics that I use to see what's available. But yes, so for our website, it is right now focused on what the market opportunity is right now.
So let me just add a little bit to that, because I was mentioning that a lot of this is driven by what is happening as motivators and priorities. So in Indian country right now, in Los Angeles, we had the big wildfires this past January. Wildfires have been impacting Indian country significantly. One of our big motivations for forming Native Energy Services Company came out of wildfires that destroyed Liz's tribes twice in 2 years. And the ability to build microgrids, battery storage, community centers for protection, for public safety, power shutoffs when the utilities go down. All of these things are motivations. In some ways, the tribes themselves don't fly very many airplanes, right? So you would say, why would sustainable aviation fuel be of importance to them? Well, quite a few tribes are now looking at it, and it's coming from a connection in some ways, from the same connection that is driving what's happening on the wildfire mitigation side. So biomass conversion is getting to be a big component. So we're working on quite a few biomass projects. And again, it kind of comes down to, if you're going to take forest waste, or if you're going to take agricultural waste, what is it you're going to make out of it? Well, for a lot of tribes, that sovereignty is key number one thing for them. So they want to be able to generate as much power as they can for resiliency and form their own utilities, but also from a revenue standpoint, if they can make renewable natural gas or green hydrogen and be able to sell it as a item rather than just casino dollars, they are looking for opportunities. But there are a number of tribes in the United States, and I can make the connection for you, that are now focusing on sustainable aviation fuel because they have the land to be able to generate the feedstock that's going to be required. So the difference really is also Chris was mentioning, we're dealing with an island and the ability to generate things locally. When you're in the United States and you make sustainable aviation fuels, maybe you're making it for here, but also you're making it to it as an export product as well. So it really kind of comes back to this, again, combination of things. The technologies, as Jason was alluding to, we have a lot of experience with the various technologies. It's back to the customer to say, at the end of the day, of what that combination of those technologies is going to generate. One pathway would be renewable natural gas for vehicles, or for, we have an example. We're in San Diego, There's a company that's based out of Carlsbad, which is northern San Diego, and they're called Energia. And they have been very successful on municipal waste conversion through anaerobic digesters. So a lot of California policy says we have to convert that. They have a way to be able to do it. But in their case, they said they stopped because the policy was connected to renewable natural gas, to microgrids. Could they have converted it to sustainable aviation fuel? Absolutely. It's just a change at the end of the pathway of what you want and why you need to have it.
It's the market driver. What's
It's
the
the
market
market.
driver at that location? I'm glad you brought up the forest waste. So there's a tribe we've been working with for 3 years now, Tule River Tribe. And they're happy to talk to you guys. We've been working in this same Master Energy Services contract we're proposing, where, you know, we started off with nothing, just a blank white paper. We said, what's your goals? We mapped out a goal of what they wanted to accomplish, and we are accomplishing these goals now. We set up already EV fast chargers at their gas stations. We started our microgrid project. We brought in DOE money, Department of Energy money grant. Then we wrote the grant. We won the grant. It was a great day. And then now we're deploying those projects. And one of the projects we're just starting on is a pyrolysis project. And that project is, there's a lot of forest waste that causes these fires. So we're gonna gather and harvest that forest waste that's on the ground that's causing these big fires for the tribes, and we're gonna use, you know, this pyrolysis system to create energy, syngas, and biochar. And we're gonna sell the biochar, and this is all through Tule River's, what they call Tule River Economic Development Corporation. Tribes will set up a corporation, and their only goal is to you know, make money for the tribe, their economic development. And so this group we've been working with for 3 years, we have gone through these steps that he talked about, taking smaller bites of the apple, and then my job is to keep them focused, because the fatigue, 3 years, you know, what's happening, you know, the first year and a half, it just seems like nothing was happening, but there was a lot happening behind the scenes, writing the grant, getting awarded the grant, the design engineering, the utility integration, you know, dealing with all the other, BIA, was the Bureau of Indian Affairs, all the politics behind it, the different, the tribal council. With tribes, they change who runs the tribe all the time. And so when you have to do this discussion every time there's a new election with the new tribal council. So it causes the development fatigue to occur, but now you see it. Now we had a ribbon cutting ceremony, I think it was just like 2 or 3 weeks ago, in one of our EV charging stations, fast chargers, at their gas station C-store. We had the local government there, we had the CEC there, CARB was there, which is California Air Resources Board, and that's one of the smaller grants we got from them. But you know, it's a progress, and this is it's actually a really good example of our success with tribes, is these little baby steps. And now we're into this bio farming of using pyrolysis.
You've come to the right place, because he's not about to lose the city. He's been here
Yeah, exactly. And that's,
for a long time.
That's Liz's, our founder Liz, who's the enrolled member. Her passion is independence for indigenous people. So we don't have just this monetary passion in the leadership. We want to help indigenous folks to have their independence, to make income.
You were here about over 15 years ago.